What's going on, everybody? I'm Darian Kelly of the Jersey Sports Network. I apologize. I'm sorry we had some technical difficulties yesterday, but I'm glad that you all are here with me today. And if you're new to the channel, if you're seeing this video for the first time, please like, share, subscribe. We're going to be talking about sports business, but particularly today, I'm here to discuss what I like to call the biggest day in sports history. This Monday, the biggest day in sports history, because we're going to witness two of probably the most competitive and anticipated women's college basketball games in probably, these are going to be all-time games, some may argue. These two Elite Eight games that are going to be taking place this evening on ESPN. The first game is a rematch of last year's national championship game between the Iowa Hawkeyes and LSU Tigers. And then the doubleheader, or the second game, is going to be USC versus UConn. And I'm going to break down these games. And what I like to do is try to give more of a broader context, not just about the games, the games itself, but just also, like I said, we're talking sports business. So the business implications around these games and the unique individuals that are going to be a part of these matchups. And what it entails moving forward. So let's jump right in. So the first game is LSU versus Iowa. This game last year, I was actually at the game. Very intense game. Fan bases were, very well represented. They loved their teams down. The Iowa Hawkeye fan base, LSU Tiger fan base, they loved their teams. I will say that this rematch is going to be, when we look at this game, like I said, going back to last year, it was the most watched women's basketball game ever recorded, with 9.9, almost 10 million people watched that national championship game. So I'm highly anticipating that this game will probably come close to, or if shatter, specific records that was slated last year. So when we look at the players that are involved in this game, right, I think that, it's fair to say that the individuals involved, particularly Angel Reese on LSU, Flau'jae Johnson on LSU, as well as Caitlyn Clark, are at the forefront of this movement that we're seeing right now within women's college basketball, within the NIL landscape, and with social media. They're ushering in this new era. And these are the names when we look back 20 years from now, when we think about where NIL started to where it is now. Caitlyn Clark, Flau'jae, and Angel Reese are going to be names that are at the foundation of what we'll see, years to come, as far as the prototypical, women's college basketball player and the brands that they have beyond just the court. But everyone remembers the game from last year specifically because of what Angel Reese did at the end of the game towards Caitlyn Clark. It was I like to call the hand wave that was seen around the world, right? People were criticizing Angel Reese for doing this hand motion, pointing at her ring finger, signaling that, hey, the ring is coming. And so she faced a lot of criticism. And I wouldn't say that the criticism was fair, because if like I said, going back to my first video, basketball is a cultural sport. And I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and we talk trash. That's just how it is. Like, you go to any basketball court, you grow up, you play basketball from 8 or 7 all the way up until you're gonna talk trash. It's very competitive. And I think what I enjoyed about what Angel Reese said recently in an interview was that her and Caitlyn Clark have no beef, right? They have no beef. They don't hate each other. But when you get between those lines, it's no friends. And that's how it is. I mean, I feel like every competitor can relate to, even if you played the sport when you were little to professional, anywhere in between, you are playing to win the game. As Coach Herm Edwards would say, you play to win the game, and that's just how it is. But I think that also too, their brands are so big. Angel Reese's brand is so big, because I think that throughout that entire March Madness tournament, between the criticism and then on top of winning and combating that criticism, brought a lot of eyes to her brand, as well as Flau'jae Johnson. And Flau'jae Johnson, in her own right, is not only a phenomenal basketball player on the court, but she's also a talented recording artist. And she also has a ton of NIL deals spanning from JBL to Powerade. She was even featured on an Experian credit advertisement. But then you also have Caitlyn Clark on the Iowa side, right? So Caitlyn Clark, to me, is the number one, or has the top brand within sports. I think it supersedes, women's or men's sports. I think that Caitlyn Clark is at the top of the food chain when it comes to brands. I was actually wrote a piece on this about the type of advertisement that's being generated by women's sports programming. And it's a report that was recently released by a company called EDO, right? They're called EDO's Women's Sports TV Outcomes Report on Advertisement. And in this specific report, it stated that Caitlyn Clark, right? Now, Caitlyn Clark has a ton of NIL deals, right? She has, Nike and Gatorade and H&R Block, and a litany of NIL deals just because of how, big her brand is. But it was reported in this Women's Sports TV Outcomes Report on Advertisement that her NIL deal with she signed an NIL deal with State Farm. However, it was reported that Caitlyn Clark's advertisements with State Farm have generated 46% more of engagement than their regular advertisement. I'll repeat that again. Caitlyn Clark's State Farm ads receive 46% more engagement than traditional State Farm ads. So when you factor that into her brand and the impact that she's having on the court, like she's having a historical season. When you think about the fact that she's led the nation in scoring this season, over 30, averaging 30 points a game, breaking the all-time scoring record. I mean, it's not hard. Like Ncaa says, it ain't hard to tell, why people are attracted to her, to watching her games. And her games have, from a viewership standpoint, have set records as well. The Ohio State-Iowa game that was played this past season set a record on Fox with, I believe, just over 3 million views. And she also played, like I said, going back to last year, that national championship game generated 9.9 million views and was the most viewed television game ever. So I think that when you have an enhanced number of views and viewership and eyes on you, brands are gonna consistently want you to be a part of that or expand their brands and bring more eyes to it. And I think that when you look at Angel Reese, you look at Flau'jae Johnson and Caitlyn Clark, between how they play on the floor and the brands that they've built, they are just a magnet to brands and their appeal and the eyes that they generate just within themselves. So that's the first game. It's going to be an all-timer. Now, the second game is going to be between UConn and USC. So UConn is what I like to say, I guess, is on a revenge tour because last year, Paige Beuckers, who was their star guard, was out with an ACL injury and didn't really get to finish the season. But Paige has had a historical run herself in college, winning a ton of accolades early on as a freshman. And now that she's back, I think that the world has kind of, not the world, but I feel like because she hasn't played and because it's just sports fans and just living in this microwave kind of world, we tend to have revisionist history. We forget about the impact of others. And so I believe Paige, and again, has a litany of NIL deals as well and has an impressive brand. Has signed one of the first to sign with Gatorade on the NIL side of things and has really built her brand to be something that is, again, something that is very attractive to brands and to emerging brands as well. So I think that Paige is not only on a revenge tour, but what you're going to see is in this game is you're going to see the star power that she brings as well. And I think on the other side, right, you have USC. And what I like about this matchup is that not only is this a battle between, two top women's college basketball brands, because even though USC has not really received, much attention, in the years, historically, USC is it's a legendary women's college basketball school. You think of the names that have come out of USC, from Lisa Leslie to Tina Thompson, to Cheryl Miller, to Cynthia Cooper. Those names alone mean everything to the game of women's basketball as a whole. So I think that USC has rich tradition, and it's going up against UConn, who has 11 national championships within women's college basketball. But USC has Juju Watkins, and Juju Watkins, has had a historic season as well. You think about the fact that she was second in scoring at 27 points. She has on the NIL side a number of deals from Nike. Most recently, Nerd Wallet, where Nerd Wallet is a company, a financial company that provides consumers and small businesses with financial advice. But Juju Watkins is building a brand for herself that expands beyond the court, and I believe, in my opinion, with USC going to the Big Ten and will be a part of that newly formed Big Ten, I predict that not only will she break Caitlyn Clark's records, but I think that she'll get a similar type of, I would like to call it the Caitlyn Clark treatment, given that she'll be with the Big Ten. If you think back to this past season with Caitlyn Clark, I think she had a game that was on Peacock, which is you got to pay a subscription to have Peacock with NBC, and so people had to pay to watch that game, and it's like wow, like a streaming platform is really this is how impactful Caitlyn Clark's brand is, that a streaming platform wants to stream the game and only have it so that the only place you can watch it is on this network. So I think that Juju Watkins is going to get a similar type of not necessarily appeal or attraction, but her games. I wouldn't be surprised if next year. What I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised next year if you see a Juju Watkins USC game through a paywall or on Peacock, because of the Big Ten and the different networks that they have partnerships with, whether it's Fox, whether it's NBC. You're going to see a lot more USC games next year for sure, given that the newly formed Big Ten will include USC as well as UCLA, and on top of those teams you'll have Oregon and Washington. So you'll have a super conference that expands not just east to west, but also in the Midwest. You think about those different markets, specifically Chicago, LA. You're gonna have the DC and the New York market. So we can expect to see more of Juju, but at the end of the day, when we look back on these games, no matter what the outcome is, these players, whether it's LSU's Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson, Caitlyn Clark, on the Iowa side, Paige Beuckers, with UConn, and then Juju Watkins on USC, these women are at the forefront. They would essentially be the foundational pieces to what we're going to be seeing moving forward. I mean, they not only have great, they're not only productive on the court, but, they have, some of the, like if you look at the top, I believe the most followed women's basketball players, particularly in college, Flau'jae, Angel, Caitlyn Clark, Juju, Paige. These are all individuals who are within the top 5, top 10 most followed athletes. So expect these games to be big this evening. My pick, or what I'm predicting, is that I think that we're going to see LSU repeat the same type or have the similar result that they had last year. I'm taking LSU against Iowa this evening. And then I'm also gonna take USC over UConn. It's hard to bet against Juju. I believe that she is an impactful player, but I don't know. I think it's gonna be a close one because Paige, like I said, is on a revenge tour. 24 points in her last game. Juju Watkins had 30. LSU, Flau'jae had 24 against UCLA in the most recent game. So let me know in the comments how you think that these games will play out. And again, thank you so much for joining me with another video. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'll have more videos similarly talking about sports and providing you some business context as well. Enjoy.